Hello and welcome to interview presentations produced by University Career Services. Today we're going to focus on the most important parts of your career journey, and that's interviews. Let's start with an overview of what we'll cover today. By the end of this presentation, you'll be answer common and interview questions with confidence, connect the experience to career competencies, and know how to prepare before and follow up after an interview. We'll tie this back to 4 key competencies: career and self-development, critical thinking, communication, and professionalism. Let's dive into an overview of the interview process. Here's our roadmap. We'll cover what to do before an interview, how to prepare for both in-person and virtual settings, strategies for answering comment and behavioral questions, and what steps to take after an interview. Now let's look at the steps before an interview. One of the biggest mistakes students make is walking into an interview without researching the company. Employers expect you to know their mission, values, and recent news. Start with the company's website, the job posting, and their social media. Handshake is our career management platform and is also a great resource to start with. Once you've done your research, the next step is to make sure you look the part. Professional attire matters. First impressions happen in the first few seconds. Let's take a moment to talk about the interview attire. Let's focus in these areas right here. So appropriate attire includes items like a suit, dress pants, or a skirt with a blouse, or a professional dress with a blazer. Neutral colors and well-fitted but comfortable clothing is always going to work best. Now let's look at what not to wear. On the other hand, you'll want to avoid inappropriate choices such as jeans, t-shirt, shoes, overly tight clothes, and extremely high heels. Remember, you want to focus on your skills and your professionalism, not distracting clothing. If you don't have business clothes, we have the Trojan Career Closet right here on campus. This screen provides the details of how students can book an appointment through Handshake to borrow professional outfits for free. Now, interviews aren't always in person anymore. Let's look at how to prepare for virtual interviews. Many interviews, especially those in the first round, might be via phone or Zoom, and this can help with the candidates, especially if they're long distance, for saving on travel expenses. When interviewing online, lighting and background make a big difference. Face natural light if you can, use a clean background, or download one of the UA Little Rock's virtual backgrounds. Test your technology, sit up straight, and look into the camera to create eye contact. Some other things to keep into consideration is to make sure that you're in a quiet atmosphere. Also have a backup plan in case you may lose connection, maybe your phone or something to that sort, to be able to connect with them. Also, if there's more than one person on the committee, also take into your consideration scanning your eyes a bit so you're showing that you're engaged with each participant. And for in-person interviews, let's make sure that you're prepared logistically as well. Make sure that you test the route ahead of time. Avoid going on a weekend because you want to make sure that you're taking in consideration traffic. So go on a normal day. Plan to arrive 10 to 15 minutes ahead of time, and also take in consideration, especially if you have to walk from a far parking lot, how much time it'll take you to comfortably get to the building. You may also want to take into consideration if you have to pay for parking. Keep in mind that your interview starts as soon as you park the car. You may come across a security guard or an administrative staff, and they may be a part of that process and you're not even aware. Now that you're prepared, let's talk about what happens during the interview. When heading to an in-person interview, make sure you bring a few essentials: several copies of your resume, a notebook and pen for jotting down notes, and a list of questions you've prepared for the interview. If it's relevant, you can also bring a professional portfolio with examples of your work. Having these items show that you're prepared and professional. If you have a presentation, make sure you can easily access it, either the cloud or maybe a USB drive. And another bit of things to kind of keep in mind is to make sure that you smile and keep a positive attitude. Do a body scan, breathe. Sometimes people might hold their breath and they tense up. So take a couple of deep breaths and be confident in the preparation that you've taken. Now that we've talked about what to bring to the interview, let's shift gears and look at some things that just as important, the common mistakes to avoid. These six interview blunders are things that can hurt your chances, even if you're otherwise a strong candidate. And these are mistakes that people have made. So this is important to avoid them. As you can see here, 59% of interviewees have chewed gum or they have spoken negatively about their employer. There's a high percentage of interviewees answering phone calls while they're on the interview. You need to make sure that your phone is completely off, not vibrating. And it's important to even maybe tell people in your family, hey, this is what to do in case of emergency. I will be in an interview, so they're aware and they're not constantly calling you. But please avoid these common mistakes. Now that we've covered the mistakes to avoid, let's shift the type of questions you'll encounter and how we prepare for strong answers. So employers often start with, tell me about yourself. And you want to keep it brief and highlight your background, key experiences, and career goals. And this is a formula for you to be able to craft your own response to the tell me about yourself question. So let's take a look at an example. I am a sophomore kinesiology major and plan to attend an athletic training master's program after I complete my undergraduate degree. I grew up playing sports in my neighborhood community center and realized the tremendous importance it has on shaping the character of children who use it. I very much would like to continue building on my experience in this area through an internship with your organization. Take the time to practice and prepare your own response to tell me about yourself by using this information in these areas. Another popular question that employers ask are, what is your greatest weakness? You can find more details about this response by watching this video, but let's have a brief breakdown of this question. You want to avoid a canned answer like, I'm a perfectionist. Instead, share an honest example of how you're improving it. For example, let's take a look at public speaking. You might say, I've never been strong at public speaking, but recently I volunteered to run my student organization meetings to help me get more comfortable with addressing a crowd. I recently joined the local Toastmasters Club. We meet every Monday night, and it's actually become one of the things I look forward to each week. In addition, I regularly volunteer to speak at team meetings. Even though they're small, they're definitely helping me to feel more comfortable sharing my ideas. All this experience has made it far easier to explain to a room that say, we need to invest in big data software. Another question you might be asked is, we have 10 other applicants just as or more qualified than you. Why should we hire you? This is opportunity to take a deep breath and rely on the confidence of your preparedness. Use this opportunity to describe your specific strengths and unique skills. Think about your leadership, your professionalism, your teamwork, or your experience with technology to highlight what makes you different and creates value and impact for the company. Now, another set of questions that employers will ask you are behavioral questions. And they'll typically start with, tell me about a time, describe a time, tell me about a specific time, give an example of, discuss an instance. One way to be able to prepare for these type of questions is to use the STAR method. The S stands for situation, the T stands for task, the A stands for actions, which means including your specific role within the group, and the R stands for results. Let's see how this looks together. So using the STAR method, let's start with the situation. Advertising revenue was falling off for my college newspaper, The Forum, and several long-term advertisers were not renewing their contracts. So my goal was to generate new ideas, materials, and incentives that would result at least a 10% increase in advertisers from the previous year. Let's look at the action. I designed a new promotional packet to go with the rate sheet and compared the benefits of our circulation with other than media in the area. And what was the result? We signed contracts with 11 former advertisers for daily ads. We increased new advertisers by 16% over the same period last year. Now, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. When you're providing an explanation like this, don't say my situation was, my task was, or my actions. Let the conversation flow. Another thing to keep in mind that most Individuals may explain their situation, their task, and their action, but never forget the result. You want to show how either you've made an impact or even potentially learned a valuable lesson. Now, remember, interviews aren't just about answering questions, they're also about the questions you ask. You should always be prepared for thoughtful questions for your interviewer. And here are some questions you may want to take in consideration. Let's look at the first three. One is, what skills and experience would make an ideal candidate? And two is, do you offer any professional development or continuing education opportunities? And three, can you show me or tell me about projects I'll be working on? These are a few examples that would give you ideas as to your work day if you were to get the position. Let's take a moment to have a brief quiz. Which questions should you not ask at the interview? What skills and experience would make an ideal candidate? Do you offer any professional development or continuing education opportunities? Can you show me or tell me about projects I will be working on? Or what is the starting salary for this position? If your answer was number four, what is the starting salary for this position? You are correct. Avoid asking about salary and benefits too early because these are conversations that you may have during your negotiation period if offered the position. Now that you've had a successful interview, let's talk about what you should do after the interview. Always after the interview, you want to provide a thank you email. And it's constructed in a particular way where you start with a greeting, express your thanks, add specific details, and end with your regards. Let's take a look at an example. So here, this is an example of a brief example of a thank you template. And you can also find other examples online where you're starting with saying dear to the hiring manager or the committee, and you want to express your support. Maybe there was something that you discussed in the interview that you want to reiterate, and maybe reiterate some particular skills. Again, you want to provide them with your thanks, provide a closing of sincerely, as well as your name. Let's say that you aced your interview and that you're offered the position and you're in the stage of salary negotiations. So salary negotiations can feel intimidating, but preparation is the key to success. Before the interview, research the typical salaries for the role using sites like Glassdoor, Salary.com, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Compare those ranges to your own education, skills, and experience so you know what is reasonable. And there's some information here you want to take into consideration as well as what your household budget may be in regards if you had to move or where you're at when looking at your salary negotiation. It's also important to consider the whole package. Sometimes benefits like health insurance, retirement contributions, paid time off, or professional development opportunities can add significant values beyond just the paycheck. And here's some information that you may want to take into consideration. It's important to practice how you'll phrase your request. Instead of saying, I want $60,000, frame it confidently, and you may want to say, based on my research and the responsibilities of this position, I believe a salary in the range of 58,000 to 62,000 would be appropriate, and you can find a baseline. Finally, be ready to listen. Negotiation is a conversation, not a demand. Stay professional and respectful. And even if the employer can't meet your number, they may offer other forms of compensation. As you can see, being prepared makes negotiations much less stressful. This concludes the interview presentation. We're here to help you succeed at every step. You can find us, you can email us at careers@ualr.edu, or you can call us at 501-916-3021. I hope you leave the session feeling more confident and ready to succeed in your new interview. Remember, interviewing is a skill, and the more you practice, the stronger you'll get.